Hello students, welcome to my YouTube channel John Lewis 3D Learning. In this presentation, we are going to see 9th Standard Science, Chemistry, ICSE syllabus, English medium. Students, we have met last time. In the last session, I gave you some introduction about chemistry in 9th Standard. Okay, it is just a repetition of what I have told you in my last class. Quickly, we will revise that. I told you there are 8 chapters in 9th standard. What are they? Language of chemistry, chemical changes and reactions, water, atomic structure and chemical bonding, periodic table, hydrogen, study of gas laws, and the last one is atmospheric pollution. So these are the 8 chapters we have to study in detail. So it's all very interesting. If you look into your daily life, day-to-day life, and if you look around what is happening, all these things becomes very easy and it becomes very interesting to us. So now let us see one by one. So today we are starting with the language of chemistry, first lesson. Okay. So language of chemistry, what all the things we will be learning, what are elements, what are compounds, and then how they react to form some other products that will be expressed in the form of chemical equation, and then atomic mass units. Every element has got its own mass. Like you have your own weight, your own mass, I have my own weight. Some people are 50 kg, some people are 60 kg, people like me are 90 kgs. So like that, all the 118 elements, they have their own mass. That is what we will be learning in this chapter. These are the 4 main things we will be learning. So elements and compounds are matters. So everything you look around us, it is made of either element or compounds. See, what is compound? Compound is a combination of elements in a fixed ratio. Many elements combined together, 2 or more elements combined together to form a bigger product known as compound. That's all. See, these are all matter. Everything is made up of matter. For example, the pen you are using, or the mic I am using to speak now, or the chalk piece your teachers are using in school, or whatever your mom used for cooking, everything is matter. Okay, this is what we are going to study in this chapter. So what is chemistry in the very first place? Chemistry is a branch of science in which we study about matter. Just now I told you everything is matter. The bed you are sleeping on, that is also a matter. The chair you are sitting in, that is also made up of some matters, isn't it? The book which you are reading is made up of some matter. So what is chemistry? Chemistry is a branch of science in which we study about matter. Everything in this world is matter. So we have to study all about those matters. That is what is chemistry. For example, you take all these objects, they are all matters. Milk is kept in a glass bottle. The glass bottle is a matter. The box kept nearby, that is also a matter. And Coke bottle is a matter. The Coke itself is a matter inside. The bell is made of iron, that is a matter. Balloons, they are also made of some particles, some substance. That is why balloons are also matters. Pear, so it is a vegetable, so that is also a matter. Books, they are also matters. Hot air balloon, it's also a matter. Pen is also a matter. So what is the matter in the very first place? They are all made up of some matters, but all the matters are not same here. They are all different. Like, see, we are all 9th standard students, but are we same? We are all different. Same thing, these are all matters, but they are all different. They have the different character, they have got different atomic mass. Everything is different. Like we have different character, different voice, different height, different color. Am I right? Everything is different in us. Same thing. In the same way, all the matters are having different things. Hope you understood. So what is chemistry? Chemistry is a branch of science in which we study about matter. So what is matter in the very first place? What it is made up of. So I told you every matter is different. So then what it is made up of? And then what are its state? What are the physical state in which they can be present? And then what is its structure? What is the structure inside? Will it be same or will it be different? For example, you take your shirt or mat at home. The structure of both these things are same or different? Or you take the structure of our skin and you take the structure of a wall. Are these same? Everything is matter, but the structures are different, isn't it? Like this, each and every matter has got its own structure that we have to learn in detail. Only then we can, based on their property, we can use in different places. For example, you take iron, which is used in all building construction, isn't it? Why not some other matter can be used instead of iron? It has got the binding character with cement, and it is also very strong. It can withstand for several years. That is why it is used there. So we should understand the structure of each and every element. Can we use cotton? Cotton is also a matter. Can cotton be used for building for any building or for any construction work? No, it cannot be used because cotton is very soft. Right? It cannot be used there. So that is why we need to understand its structure. So why iron is hot? So how the structure is inside? Why cotton is soft? So what is the structure inside? Everything will be very, very interesting to learn. Okay, then what are the changes it can undergo? So when you subject to pressure, when you subject to heat, so what kind of changes these matters will undergo? For example, if you heat iron, what will happen? It will turn red hot at one particular stage, that will melt. Am I right? If you heat water, what happens? It evaporates. And if you put them in a freezer, what happens to water? It turns into ice, solid ice, isn't it? So everything changes. Some are physical changes, some are chemical changes, but we will be dealing with only chemical changes here because chemistry deals with chemical changes. Okay, so what we'll be learning in this chapter? What is matter? What it is made up of? What are its state? What is its structure? And what are the changes it can undergo? We will see one by one now. What is matter in the very first place? Any substance that has mass and occupies space. Occupies space means what? What? Volume. Any substance that has mass and its own volume is known as matter or occupies space. Instead of volume, you can write space. So for example, you take solid. So it has its own mass, isn't it? A solid substance has its own mass. Does it occupy any space? Yes, it occupies some space. So it has both mass and occupies some space, therefore it is a matter. You take any liquid, for example, you take water, you are pouring into a water glass, into a glass. The water takes the shape of the glass. So it has certain volume, and water also has its own mass. Therefore this is also a matter. You take any gas, that also occupies some space in the universe, isn't it? You take air, everywhere air is there in the universe. So it occupies some space, and also it has some weight, that is mass. No, it has some mass. Therefore gases are also matter. Okay, solid, liquid, gases are matters. It can be in any form. They occupy both. It has mass and also occupies space. Therefore all these things are called matter. Okay, now I am going to give you some example. You have to guess whether it is a matter or not. Okay, what is matter? Any material which has mass and occupies space is known as matter. Or any substance which has mass and occupies space is known as matter. Book, is it a matter? First question you ask, does it have any mass? Yes. Can it occupy some space? Yes. Therefore it is a matter. Desk, it has both mass and volume. Therefore this is also a matter. Person, you take any person, they have mass. Any person, me or you or anybody else, they have mass and also they occupy some volume. No, they occupy some space. Therefore person is also a matter. Rock, it has both mass and volume. Water, so here there is a spelling mistake, WATER. There should not be double T, so better you remove one T here. Okay, so water is WATER, water. Okay, water has mass and also it occupies some space, therefore it is also a matter. Heat, can you find the mass of a heat, or can you find out its volume? We can only feel it, am I right? It has no mass, it has no space. Cold, that is also, you can feel it, but you cannot weigh it. You cannot weigh the cold, or you cannot find out its volume, therefore it is not a matter. Time also, it has no mass, it has no volume. Sound, I am speaking, you are also speaking, someone screaming, we are hearing sound everywhere. Bird chirping, dog barking, am I right? Everything is sound, but can you weigh them? Can you measure its volume? No, therefore sound cannot be a matter. Light, once you switch off the light, then the room gets dark, isn't it? Then where the light has gone, can you find out its mass? Can you find out its volume? No, it is not possible. Therefore all these things at the right hand side are not matters, and all the things I have shown on the left hand side are matters. Why? Because they have both mass and occupy space. And what all the things at the right hand side? They have neither mass nor volume, therefore they are not matters. So like this, they can give you so many things, and they can ask you to classify them as matter and non-matter. You have to be very clear about it. Ask two questions. Does it have mass? Does it occupy any space? Or does it have volume? This is the two questions you have to ask. If any one is missing, then it cannot be matter. Understand? Okay. You take your own example and okay, what is mass? So we said certain things have mass. Okay, what is mass? The amount of matter that something is made of is known as mass. For example, my mother used to ask me when I was a kid, John, can you tell me which is heavier, 1 kg iron or 1 kg cotton? I used to say 1 kg cotton because 1 kg iron will be small in quantity, but 1 kg cotton will be large in quantity. Am I right? Because it is very light. Therefore, for 1 kg, the amount will be more. See, I always think, no, cotton is, the quantity is more, therefore that should be heavier. But what is the question? Both are 1 kg. Which is heavier, 1 kg cotton or 1 kg iron? Both are same, am I right? Weights are same. But the quantity wise, iron is less and iron is less, cotton is more. Am I right? But both are 1 kg only. That is why the amount of matter that something is made up of is known as mass. Is it clear? Some metals are heavy, some metals are soft, and that we need to understand. So it is a very good question you can ask your brother or sister at home. Can you tell me which one is heavier, 1 kg iron or 1 kg cotton? So you find out, okay, what is their answer, whether they are thinking or not, you can find out. Even you can ask your parents. Okay, shall we move on to the next one? What is volume? What is volume? So does it occupy any space in the universe? Yes. Your pillow occupies some space. You yourself occupy some space in the universe. Am I right? Your pen occupies some space in the universe. So, but how will you define what is volume? The amount of space taken up or occupied by an object is known as volume. So this much space is occupied by this, and that is what is volume. How much space an object occupies is known as volume. The amount of space taken up or occupied by an object is known as volume. Is it clear? Okay. So what is the next question? What is matter made up of? So what is that matter made up of? So all the matters are made up of elements or compounds. Compounds means what? Many elements combined together, then it becomes compounds. That's all. Everything is made up of elements or compounds. So what is element and how we can learn them? How many? What I told you already. There are 118 elements in our chemistry syllabus, and we should learn all the 118 elements and how they combine with one another to form several compounds. See, all the matters are made up of either elements, simple elements, or compounds. This is what we need to understand. So next question is, what are its state? In what all the physical state they can exist? So they can exist in three forms. What are they? Gas, liquid, and solid. For example, you take water, it can exist in all three forms. Steam, gas, and then water, liquid, and then ice, that is solid. It is so the same matter can exist in three different forms. But if you take mercury metal is liquid. You take iron is solid, copper is solid, nickel is solid, manganese is solid, magnesium is solid. And if you take oxygen, nitrogen, chlorine, fluorine, all these things are gases. All these elements are gases. Therefore, out of all the 118 elements, they can exist in all three different forms. Some are solids, some are liquids, some are gases. Okay, but when they combine together, it is not necessary they can be in the same phase. For example, hydrogen is a gas, oxygen is also a gas. But when these two combine together, hydrogen combines with oxygen, forms water. But water is a liquid. Water is a liquid. Two gases can combine to form a liquid compound. So that is what is the beauty of chemistry. I told you in my introductory session itself when we met last time. Okay, same thing. So what are the three states of matter? Gas, liquid, and solid. So what is the next question? What is its structure? What is its structure? What it is made of? Okay, so that is what we need to understand. Every element has its own structure. So what it has? It is made up of atoms. So how does an atom be like? So an atom has a nucleus inside. So here you see the center. So it is called nucleus, in which two types of particles are present. What are they? Proton and neutron. So one is proton. On the blues, the balls in blue color are protons. The ball in red colors are neutron. Okay, N is neutron, P is proton. But the one in black color, that will be revolving around the nucleus. So that is called orbits. They will be revolving around the nucleus at various orbits. That is what is electron. The particle is known as electron. So electron is denoted by N. Therefore there are three particles in an atom. What are they? Pen, proton, electron, and neutron. So if you remember a pen, you can easily recollect them. P stands for proton, E stands for electron, N stands for neutron. So what is its structure? Every element is made up of an atom. An atom consists of what? A nucleus. So this is what is a nucleus part. Entire thing is nucleus, in which two types of particles are present, proton and neutron. And electrons will be revolving around the nucleus at various orbits. So the circular paths are known as orbits. So electrons will be revolving around the nucleus at various orbits. So this is what is the structure of atom. But the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons are different for all the 118 elements. That is why they are different. If these things are same, then every element will be the same. The number of electron, number of proton, number of electron will be different for all the 118 elements. We can say 118 people are there in chemistry. They all have different structure. Everybody has, but if you take people like us, we all have bones inside. We all have 206 bones. We all have only one heart. We all have one lungs. Am I right? One pair of lungs, in other words. Or we all have a pair of kidneys. Am I right? Everybody is having the same thing. But if you take elements, all the 118 elements are different. What is inside them are different. It is not like a human being. It is totally different. So they all differ in their number of electrons, protons, and neutrons. If there is only one proton and only one electron in its atom, then that is known as hydrogen element. That's what we will be learning. So each and every element has got how many electron, proton, and neutron in their atoms. That's what we will be learning in the atomic structure chapter. Okay. So what is the next question? So the next one is, what are the changes it can undergo. So suppose you combine two elements, it can combine together to form a compound. So they can burn, they can rust, and once you are cooking, the hard substance becomes soft, isn't it? And some soft substance also becomes hard when we cook. For example, you boil a potato and also you boil an egg in the same container. What will happen to the potato? The hard potato becomes soft. But when you boil an egg, what happens to the egg? The soft egg becomes hard, isn't it? The soft egg becomes hard. Same process, but its character changes. Its character changes. That is what. So burning, rusting, cooking, all these type of processes will change one compound into other compound, or it can change one or more element combining together to form several different compounds. So like this, lots of chemical changes will take place. Understand? In cooking, rusting, burning, all these things are chemical changes, and new substance will form. For example, if you throw iron rod and you allow it in the atmospheric air for some time, for a month or so, it turns into brown, because that iron reacts with oxygen present in the air and forms iron oxide compound. Iron is an element, oxygen is also an element, but these two combine together to form iron oxide. That's a compound. That is what is a brown substance forming around the solid iron. Okay, that is a chemical change. That is a chemical change. Okay, so shall we move on to the next one? So now in the language of chemistry, what all the things we need to learn? Elements, radical, and compound. So element, I told you, no, it can exist on its own. And compound, many elements combine together to form a compound. What is a radical? Radical means a group of atoms or group of elements combine together and exist as a single unit. But they cannot exist on its own. So one positive can combine with a negative. That is how it can exist. It cannot exist on its own. For example, you take carbonate, CO3, that is what is carbonate, that is a negative ion. So it can combine with a positive element and forms a compound. So radical means a group of atoms which can exist as a unit, but it cannot be present on its own. Only in the combined state it can exist. Understand? That is what is radical. Okay, when we see examples, we will understand much more. See, we will be learning element, radical, and compound. So in element, what all the things we'll be learning? What are the 118 elements name and how they are represented? See, it is very tough to write the name every time. It is boring, no? It is long. We have to use some shortcut method. That is what is called symbol. Okay, next one is valency. What is a valency? When one element combines with another valency, it has got its own capacity. One atom of one element can combine with how many atoms of the other element? That is what is known as its valency. See, I can eat 2 idlis, you can eat 3 idlis, somebody can eat 4 idlis. That is what is our capacity to eat. Like that, the combining capacity of one element with the other element is known as what? Valency. Then in radical, we will be learning all the group of atoms combining together, no? So that we will be learning all the formulas. Then in compound, we will be learning so many things. So what is a compound, and how a chemical compound is formed from elements, and what are their chemical equation, and then what is the definition of chemical equation, or what is the definition of various types of reaction. Everything we will be learning here. And then examples for each and everything, we have to see some examples. And then relative atomic mass. As I told you, like each and every one of us have got our own weight. Every element has got its own weight. That is what is relative atomic mass. Okay, then percentage composition. So in each and every compound, what is the percentage of each and every element present? For example, you take water, the formula of water is H2O. So hydrogen has got its own atomic mass, oxygen has got its own atomic mass. But what is the percentage of hydrogen? What is the percentage of oxygen in water molecule? That we can find out. So these are all mathematics. Ultimately, after learning the concept, after learning the definitions, we should be able to convert them into mathematical format. That is what is chemistry is all about. Okay. So now let's go and see some other thing, what all the things we are going to see in this chapter. So these are the two people, great people, great scientists. I am very happy. Part of their names is my name, John. So he is John Dalton. He is the first person who started representing all the elements in by giving a symbol for each element, and that was a bit difficult after some time. So using John Dalton's symbol was confusing when the number of elements increased. In fact, when John Dalton assigned symbols for all the elements, only 36 elements were discovered, but now 118 elements. But to represent everything in the form of John Dalton symbol has become tedious now. That is why Johannes Jacob Berzelius, he developed a system, a new different system which is easier, and till date that is what is used. So John Dalton developed that system in 1803. In the year 1803, almost now we are in 2020. That means what? 217 years had gone. So when during his time only 36 elements were there. Now how many elements are there? 118 elements are there. So how to represent all the 118 elements? By John Jacob Berzelius. And this is what is a method we are using even today. So this we will be learning in the next session. Today we will be learning about John Dalton's symbol only. How he gave 36 symbols for 36 elements. Okay, let us see them very quickly here. So these are the 36 elements discovered during John Dalton's time. John Dalton's 36 elements in 1803. Oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. Okay, everything is represented by different symbol. 36 elements are there. So let us see quickly one by one. Okay, how is oxygen represented? By a single circle. Then what is the next one? Hydrogen, same circle but inside one dot. That is what is hydrogen. Next, nitrogen. Okay, circle and one vertical line in the middle. Okay, that is what is nitrogen. And then carbon, again circle, and carbon is black in color, no? So he just had given black shade inside. Okay. Next is sulfur. So circle and then a cross inside, full cross inside. That represents sulfur. Next one, phosphorus. So it is like a car steering, no? It is an inverted Y inside. So a circle and inverted Y. It looks like car steering. That is what is phosphorus. So we have seen 6 symbols. And then gold, you draw a circle and the first letter G, gold. And then platinum, you draw a circle, the first letter P inside. And silver, same circle and first letter S inside. And then mercury, it is not M inside. See, a circle, and then so you have to draw 2 lines in the, like in a clock, no? In number 12 you draw 1 line, and number 6 you draw 1 line, and then between these two draw 3 lines like this at the right hand side, and draw 3 lines like this at the left hand side. Otherwise you can remember 12, 3, 6, 9, 4 lines, and between every line you draw another line. That is what is mercury. Is it clear? So this is 12, this is 3, this is 6, this is 9, and then in between everything you have to draw 1 line each. That is what is mercury. So how many lines are there altogether? 3, 5, 8 lines are there for mercury. Okay. And then copper, circle C. Then iron, circle I. Nickel, circle N. And tin, circle T, the first letter for everything. And then lead, circle L. And then for zinc, circle, first letter is Z or Z. And then for bismuth, circle and the first letter B. And then for antimony, circle and the first 2 letter here. First 2 letter AN, that is what is written here. Antimony. You can think of your auntie and she is giving you money, anti-money. Okay, that becomes very easy to remember. Okay, so we have seen 18 elements now. So they might ask you, okay, what is the symbol, John Dalton's symbol of bismuth? What is John Dalton's symbol of mercury? So you should be very clear about it. Even though we are not using nowadays, so he only started, no, he only started giving some symbolic representation for all elements. That gave idea for other scientists to develop further. That is how so many, all the developments are. It was very novice when they started, no, and with the development of science and technology, people have improved their thinking skill and they developed everything, isn't it? Okay, same thing. So only if you learn all these things, when anything you come across in your life, and you will also start thinking like this. That is why we all should learn all these things, even though this method is not in use right now. Okay, so next one, arsenic. Again, see, now you can understand for antimony why they put two letters A, N. Antimony also letter A, arsenic also letter A. Then we may not be able to distinguish. That is why when the first letter is same, what they used, the first two letters they used. For arsenic, circle and AR. And then for calcium, circle and a big W. Just try to remember a W horizontally. Okay. And then manganese, circle Ma, first two letter Ma. And then for uranium, circle U. Then for tungsten, circle Tu, because already we used T for tin. Am I right? In the previous page we used T for tin. Therefore we cannot use the same T. That's why we are using two letters here, tungsten, circle and Tu. And then titanium, TiT, three letters are used. Three letters are used for titanium. So next one, cerium. Already C is used for copper, no? Circle, C is copper. So that is why they are using here. John Dalton had given two letters, Ce, for cerium. And then potassium, circle and three lines. So some people, some religious people, no, draw on their forehead, no, three lines, so that we can remember potassium. And then for sodium, same circle, instead of three lines for potassium, here for sodium only two lines, all vertical lines, all vertical lines. And then for calcium, two rounds, so one circle and small circle inside, calcium. Then magnesium, so already manganese, no, we have used Ma. This is also the first letter is Ma, therefore circle. And for calcium they put W horizontally, here they put W vertically, am I right? The same W they put vertically for magnesium. So try to understand, correlate the calcium and magnesium, how they are represented. Okay. So next one, barium. So barium, so only at 3 and 6, only at 3 and 9 the lines are drawn. So in the clock, so number 3 and 9, there's a straight line here, and then draw two lines here and draw two lines here. It is not like already we use for mercury, no. For mercury, how many lines we used? 8 lines we used. Here only 6 lines for barium. Okay, next. Strontium. See, for sulfur we put one cross, no? Circle cross, but it is not full cross. So at 12, 3, 6 and 9, a single line is drawn. 4 lines here for strontium. 4 lines for strontium, 6 lines for barium and 8 lines for mercury. So all these things are similar. What you can do is, you can classify them, you can group them together, so that you can remember, you can group calcium and magnesium together, and you can group potassium, sodium, so all vertical lines together. That will be easier to compare and remember. So you can group strontium, barium and mercury in the previous page. So next one is aluminium. So circle and 4 dots like this. That is what is aluminium. And next is silicon. So circle and then draw a triangle inside. And then yttrium, okay, circle and draw a plus without touching the circle. Suppose it touches the circle on all sides, then that becomes sulfur. Right? So here it is only a circle and then a plus mark inside without touching the circle. Next one, beryllium. Okay, like For calcium we have put two circles, no, like that. For beryllium you put 2 circle, and then like for strontium you draw 4 lines at 12, 3, 6 and 9. So compare all these things, calcium, strontium, beryllium, no. So they have got some similarities. The last one is zirconium. You see, it is not extended W, no, it is W and then one more line is extended. It is like magnesium vertically represented but extended W. Okay, that is what is known as zirconium. So calcium, magnesium, zirconium are somewhat similar. Therefore you need to understand how they are similar and how they are different, so that it becomes easier to compare and remember. Okay, you can group all the similar things together and compare them, so that you will not make that mistake. So you learn all the 36 symbols thoroughly and how to represent. You tell the name of the element, you should be able to write the symbol, or by looking at the symbol we should be able to write the name of the elements. So this is how the question will be asked, and you should be clearly learning them. Okay, so we want to represent water. So what is the formula for water? Nowadays we know it is H2O. This is according to John Jacob Berzelius method. But here in John Dalton's period, how he represented, oxygen is represented by a circle. Okay, then hydrogen is represented by a circle and dot inside. So 2 hydrogens are there. Therefore this is hydrogen and 1 dot inside, and then this is another hydrogen, a dot inside. So this is how it was represented. So now if we want to represent sulfuric acid, H2SO4, this is nowadays we are using this one. But in John Dalton's method, what he has to do, he has to draw sulfur. So how the sulfur was represented, that we need to write. So this is how it is, circle and then a cross inside. And then oxygen, 4 oxygens are there. How they are represented? 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygens, no dot inside. If you put a dot inside, that becomes hydrogen. And then 2 hydrogens, therefore put 2 hydrogens. So here 1 hydrogen, you put with another oxygen, another hydrogen. So now it becomes tedious, no, when the number of atoms in a molecule gets larger, and it is very difficult to remember also. We may not be able to read out this by looking at these symbols. It was very tedious, especially when the number of elements increased from 36 to 118. That is why different scientists tried various different methods, and finally who succeeded? John Dalton. John Jacob Berzelius succeeded in giving a wonderful system to represent the elements symbolically, and we will be learning Berzelius various symbols in the next lesson. I hope you understood it very thoroughly, and never mind going through this video again and again until you understand it fully. So wherever necessary, you can pause the video and you can recollect all the points, and then you can proceed. That is what you are supposed to do. That is what is the advantage of learning from a video. You can rewind and you can think it, you can run it over again and again, and you can think again and again until it gets until it is getting stuck in your brain permanently. That is what is very important. If you keep it temporarily, so now I am teaching chemistry, next hour some maths teacher will come and teach mathematics, and then after maths class if you forget chemistry, it's no use. We should be able to remember them. For a longer period. We should not relearn the same thing again and again. Okay, I will be teaching you some methodology, how to transfer your information from short-term memory to long-term memory as we go learning various chapters and in various sessions. Okay, hope you enjoyed, children. It is so simple provided you understand all the concepts. Thank you very much for watching. Until we meet next time. Bye bye.